This is the softest shoe I've ever put on my feet. But is that a good thing? Let's find out. I am a huge fan of like the most max cushion running sneakers. I love that super plush softness underfoot, both for lifestyle wear and for recovery and slower runs. There's just something about that ultimate cushy, soft feeling that I can't get enough of. And I understand that that feeling is not for everybody. Everyone's definition of comfort is slightly different. For me, it's like the maximum cushion, but for you, it might be something else. It might be a more firm, more stable ride. And if that's you, right off the bat, I can tell you you're probably not gonna like this shoe. But if you're a fan at all of like that stupid, soft, cushiony, pillowy, trampoline-like feel, then the Nike Vomero Premium is a shoe that you've gotta try. Over the last decade or so, max cushion sneakers have become more popular than I think they've ever been. It started out, at least in my opinion, with the Adidas Ultra Boost, a shoe that featured Boost technology, which at the time was the softest cushion that you could get underfoot. Even to this day, the Ultra Boost 1.0 is still a very comfortable shoe, but compared to some of the crazy stack height sneakers and the super soft foams that you get in modern running sneakers, it doesn't hold a candle. One of the standouts in the last decade or so that I felt like was the softest shoe that you could buy for like 3 or so years was the Nike Invincible Run 3. This shoe featured a full-length ZoomX midsole which felt incredible underfoot, and at the time, I think 2021 or 2022 when this shoe first released as the Invincible Run 1, the stack height seemed crazy high. However, over the last couple years, stack heights have changed dramatically. In fact, this seems almost regular now. As much as I love this shoe as a max cushion lifestyle sneaker, for running, I didn't love it, mainly because it felt a little unstable because it wasn't really wide enough. And a year or so after the Invincible 3 released, I was patiently waiting for the Invincible Run 4, the shoe that was supposed to solve all of the problems of the Invincible Run 3. But instead of getting that, Nike decided to completely restructure their running sneakers entirely, which honestly was probably a good thing. So essentially what they did was they cut down their lineup of sneakers to 3 main categories. You had the Pegasus line, or the Pegasus category, which is their everyday running sneaker line, and that category or line consists of 3 different models. You had the standard version, the regular Pegasus, I think the Pegasus 41, you had the Pegasus Plus, and then you had the Pegasus Premium. The Pegasus Premium being by far the most expensive and the one featuring the craziest tech, and while it wasn't probably the best everyday trainer, it was a shoe that featured the best that Nike had to offer. This same good, better, best strategy can be found in their 2 other categories of sneakers. You've got the Structure, which is their stability line, which of course comes with the regular Structure, the Structure Plus, and the Structure Premium. I don't believe at the time of me filming this video, the Structure Plus or the Premium have released yet. They might release in 2026, I'm not totally sure. And then you had the Max Cushion or the Most Cushion line, which was the Vomero line. Now, just like the Pegasus and the Structures, you had a good, better, best strategy. You had the Vomero 18, which was a very well-cushioned everyday runner. Obviously, the Vomero 18 being the good option was the most budget option. It came in at $155, if you can really call that a budget option. And the reason they were able to cut down the price on this shoe is because while they were using good materials, they weren't using the best of the best. So for example, the midsole came with a mix of ZoomX foam and Nike React, ZoomX being the softer foam that was used relatively sparingly in the sneaker, whereas most of the midsole, albeit thick, was primarily made up of Nike React, which is still soft, but not as soft as ZoomX. The upper of the shoe is more of a standard engineered mesh, nothing crazy. It's a great everyday trainer. It's softer than the Pegasus, but it's still not the softest shoe that Nike makes. The next shoe in the lineup, the better option, was the Vomero Plus, a shoe that just recently released for $180, obviously about $25 more expensive than the regular Vomero. The big difference between this shoe and the Vomero 18 was the fact that the upper was made up of a slightly nicer engineered mesh. It was more breathable, it's a bit thinner, it's a bit lighter, and the midsole, even though it looks very similar to the Vomero 18, actually comes with entirely ZoomX foam, so it's all of that softer foam. Now, it's not like the ZoomX that you find in the Alpha Flies. I didn't realize there was different versions of ZoomX, but there are. It's still very, very soft and it still feels great, but from what I've heard, it is a slightly different formulation of ZoomX, and because of that, it's just not as soft as the Alpha Flies. Then again, the Alpha Fly is a shoe that's only meant for like 200 miles for like a marathon. This shoe is meant to be more of a max cushion daily trainer. So that's why they use a slightly different foam. That being said, kind of went off on a tangent there. This shoe is, I would say, definitely softer than the Vomero 18. Is it significantly softer? It's noticeable. But now, finally releasing on October 2nd, we get Nike's maximum cushioned max cushion sneaker, and that is the Vomero Premium. As you could have guessed from the premium moniker on the shoe, this shoe is by far the most expensive. Initially thought to come in at a $220 price point, it's actually coming in at $230, which is a lot of money for a pair of sneakers, I'm not gonna lie. That being said, for the tech that you get, it's not absurd, but it's also significantly higher than either of the other Vomeros. I will say though, after wearing this shoe for the last few days and running in it and walking in it and just having it as an everyday shoe, It is definitely the softest shoe. In fact, it is the softest shoe that I've ever put on my foot, and that's comparing it side by side to max cushion sneakers like the New Balance X-More V6, the Brooks Glycerin Max, even against the Vomero Plus, the shoe that I just recently called the most comfortable pair of shoes that I owned. This shoe is truly unbelievably soft. But here's the problem. It might be too soft. I never thought I was gonna say that. As someone who loves max cushion, it feels wrong to say that, but genuinely, the more that I've worn this shoe, I'm like, it's a little too soft. Now, with that being said, do I dislike the sneaker? No, I actually think it's pretty great, but it's not a shoe that I see myself wearing every day, either for runs or for day-to-day wear. This shoe is truly something else, and I wanna get into all of that in this review, so sit down, relax, grab a drink, whatever you need, because we're about to go in depth on the Nike Vomero Premium. So first things first, let's start off with the materials. The entire upper of the shoe is made up of this very thin engineered mesh. Now, although the engineered mesh itself is very thin, the upper of this shoe is like stupid padded. It's so soft and so plush. Now, all of that plushness does come from the ankle area of the shoe, around the collar, and of course the tongue, both of which are insanely padded and feel really good against your foot. It really does feel like a pillow around your foot. But the actual material that covers the entire exterior of the upper of the shoe is this thin, semi-translucent engineered mesh. Now, while this engineered mesh is very thin, it is kind of backed with some other materials. And I say kind of because essentially the material backing a majority of the upper of this shoe is the gusseted tongue that's connected to like this mesh that sort of sits up against the inside of the upper. I realize that's kind of a weird way to describe it. It's almost like a booty construction made up of mesh, but it's not exactly a booty construction. So you've got this very thin engineered mesh, and then you've got this more standard mesh that obviously connects to the tongue and then wraps all the way around the front of the shoe. I found it to be, in some cases, a little warm. We're nearing the end of September, at least at the time of me filming this video. It should start to get colder as the months progress, but there are still hot days. And I've ran in this shoe in the hot sun around noon on a hot day yesterday, and it did get warm. It did definitely get warm. Now, of course, with a pair of Apothecary socks, my sock brand, it didn't get as warm as it could have gotten. Quick plug here for my sock brand Apothecary, which by the way you should check out if you haven't yet. Apothecary socks are incredibly breathable. They have ISOWeave technology, which makes them soft, breathable, and fit your foot like a glove. They're incredible. Seriously, check them out if you're looking for running socks, everyday socks, any kind of cut of sock, or crazy limited designs that match with every sneaker in your collection. Make sure to check out Apothecary socks. If you click the link in the description below and use my code Seth, you get $10 off of your first order. And for those of you that don't know, I started Apothecary about 5 years ago with a friend of mine that I met in college in industrial design school. And over the last 5 years, we've been prototyping and sampling and creating new versions of socks until we've gotten to now where we feel like we have the best sock ever. It's a sock 3.0, and it's pretty great. And if you haven't tried it out, make sure to check it out through the link in the description below and use code Seth for $10 off of your first order. But with that being said, yeah, this shoe could be hot, but when you're wearing good socks, it's not as bad as it could be. Aesthetically, the upper of this shoe is actually pretty rad, and that's because there's some really cool hidden details that you may or may not know about. So of course, on the lateral side of the shoe, you've got this black Nike swoosh. On the medial side, you've got a much smaller Nike swoosh towards the heel, but printed on top of that, or I guess heat pressed on top of that, you've got this air text. Now, the design of this air text and obviously the placement is inspired by the classic Nike Air More Uptempo, one of the coolest basketball sneakers of all time. And the fact that they incorporated that into this shoe is such a cool callback to Nike basketball. It's such a nice Easter egg for sneakerheads. I really, really love it. It's such a cool detail, and it's very subtle. Like, it doesn't overpower the design of the shoe. In fact, I didn't even really know about it until I started to see up-close pictures of this shoe, and I was like, wow, hold up, that's from the Uptempo. That's dope. Another cool detail is that sort of offset underneath the letters, you've got this sort of dot pattern that actually has some real texture to it, which makes it kind of feel like a comic book, and it also looks very fast and very speedy. It's just a really cool design. I really love the subtle detail that they added on the upper. It really makes this sneaker much more interesting than you'd think that it would be as a expensive running sneaker. As far as the actual feel of the engineered mesh, it does feel pretty plasticky and very similar to what you have on the, I keep calling it the Pegasus, but the Vomero Plus. It's not bad at all. It gets the job done. It contains your foot relatively well, at least as much as the material can, and it feels flexible and soft. It is definitely more lightweight than the material that you have on the regular Vomeros, and definitely on the Pegasus Premiums. Moving up around the tongue to the eye stay area of the shoe, you've got this reinforcement in the way of this heat press material. It's almost a double reinforcement around the eyelets themselves. The laces are flat white laces. They get the job done. I will say that something that I experienced myself and I've also heard from multiple people. Shout out to Cchungy on Instagram. He's an amazing running influencer. Check him out, link in the description below. That this shoe does sometimes need to be really retightened in the middle of a run. Now that's something that did happen to me once. I didn't think it was really the shoe. I thought I just hadn't tied the laces very tight, so I'm kind of still on the fence about that. Chris did say though that it happened to him mid-run, that he did feel like he needed to tighten up the shoes, so we'll talk about fit in a minute, but that is something to keep in mind. The laces themselves, I think, are fine. I don't think it's a lace issue. Now, of course, underneath the laces, you've got this super plush, super thick tongue. At the top of the tongue, you've got this patch that says Run, and then Vomero Premium. Like I said, the front half of the shoe really doesn't have any padding whatsoever, but this back half just like makes your ankle and your heel just feel like it's sitting in a sauna. It's like, oh, this is like a pillow. And then you feel the softness underneath your foot, which we'll get to in a second. And it's like, dang, this shoe is soft. The insole itself is nothing special. Obviously the design varies depending on which side of the shoe that you're looking at. On one side it says Vomero, maximum cushioning. The other side just says Nike Run. But you really don't need a super soft insole when you've got the cushioning that you have on this shoe. It's ridiculous. Now at this point, let's answer a question that I'm sure most of you are asking if you're watching to this point in the video. How does the Nike Vomero Premium fit? You guys love to call me Mr. True to Size in the comment section, which I get. I take that moniker. I only say it when I believe it, and I primarily review shoes that just happen to be true to size. I will say, while yes, I do think that this shoe overall is true to size, it is a very wide shoe. I would say if you're a wide footer, you probably should be okay going true to size. But as a regular footer, or even a narrow footer, I do think that there is a chance that you may find yourself having a bit too much room in the toe area. And that seems to be the main reason why I've heard people have had to tighten up the shoes mid-run, because there's just so much room and there's just like a lot of movement, so you really have to lock yourself in. And I think people don't realize how much you actually have to lock yourself into the shoe, and that's why you have to readjust it. I think if you lock yourself in really tight in the beginning, you're good to go, but that's just my take on it. I think if you really lock yourself in at the start of a run, you're good to go. If you're wearing it casually, it really doesn't matter how much you tighten the shoe down, it's gonna be fine. But as far as fit goes, yeah, true to size is good. It's definitely a wide footer friendly shoe. If you're a narrow footer and you don't like having a lot of room for your toes to spread out, maybe go down half a size. I think the length was perfect for me though, so I don't know if I would have done that. Again, as a regular width person, I think this shoe fits fine, but it's definitely a wide boy, as you can see from the footprint of this shoe. It is a chunky one. It is a thick shoe, thick with 2 C's, both in the midsole and in the width area. This is a very large sneaker. It's also not like super lightweight either. It's lighter weight than you would think that it would be based on the way that it looks, but it's still not super light. According to Nike, a size 10 is 12.4 ounces, which is 351 grams. I didn't do the math, I literally just looked at the website. That's how I know that. I'm not that quick at math, which is not light. Now, it's not like the chunky shoe out there. You're not gonna feel like you're held down by bricks, but it is definitely not the lightest running shoe out there. That being said, when it comes to max cushion shoes, all of them are pretty heavy because they've got so much foam in the midsole. So it's not that surprising, and I don't really find it to be a problem. But now let's move down on the shoe to the main event, the Nike Vomero Premium midsole. This midsole in the heel is 55.5 millimeters thick. That's crazy. Like, look at it compared to, let's find just a regular shoe. Here's the upcoming Air Jordan 1 Chicago. Look at that. You're getting like 2 inches when you step into this shoe. It's ridiculous. I feel like this is an unfair comparison because this is just a regular cup sole. Here it is next to the regular Vomero. A couple millimeters on top. I'd say probably 5 to 10 up there. Let's even compare it to the Vomero Plus. Wow. It's actually way higher than the Vomero Plus. This is a thick shoe. Even the forefoot is thick. It's 45.5 millimeters in the forefoot. There's a 10 millimeter drop. It is a relatively large drop, but at the same time, you're going from super thick to like thick with 1C. I mean, shoot, even the forefoot of the shoe is thicker than the heel of like most shoes. Probably double the thickness of the original Ultra Boost. Honestly, if you are a short king, shoot, there you go. Comfort and height. And for someone like me, 5'11" on a good day, 5'10" when I'm slouching, this gets me to the 6 foot mark. So this midsole is made up of 2 main components. You've got ZoomX, which is all of the foam in the midsole. It's the top part, it's the bottom part, it's the huge stack height of like 55 millimeters, like in the middle where there's no air units. That's just straight foam. But then in the forefoot and in the heel, you've got these really large and exposed air zoom units. I didn't know how these were gonna feel. I thought that maybe they would take away from some of the softness. One thing I've noticed with air zoom units in shoes that are already soft, they honestly can be the harder part of the midsole just because they're more bouncy and they're made up of a plastic versus a foam, which is just like soft and cushy. But what's crazy about these air zoom units is that they do add softness. Not only that, they add some responsiveness and some bounce. And of course, make this shoe look incredibly unique and wild. A shoe that looks like it shouldn't exist. Now, according to Nike, the inspiration, or I guess the feel that they were going for, was an anti-gravity treadmill. The kind of treadmill that you use for recovery. Basically, they're trying to make you feel weightless in this shoe. Feel like you're kind of gliding into the next step. And in a lot of ways, it does feel like that. And like the Pegasus Premium, which gave you this really unique underfoot feel because of the 2 different foams and the full-length air zoom unit, this shoe also gives you an incredibly unique feel. First of all, it's soft. It's insanely soft. Like I said, almost too soft. Almost to a point where you feel like you're sinking into it. But that's where the Air Zoom units come in. Not only do they compress really nicely and give you some extra cushion, but they really bounce you into the next step. They give you that trampoline-like feel that makes you feel like you're weightless. It is truly a wild experience, both for walking and for running. Like when I was running in this shoe, I really did feel like it was a relatively effortless run. Now, was it as effortless as something like the Alphafly Next Percent? No, because there's no carbon plate in there. It really didn't spring you into the next step. With that shoe, I feel like I could run for 4 hours and be good. With this shoe, I still, I felt winded at the end of my run. I'm not gonna lie to you. I don't run every single day, but I do run here and there. And I did feel like I had done some exercise in this shoe. So it's not like a cheat code, at least not for normal runners, where it makes you feel like you can run way longer than you usually can. Although apparently there have been some pretty amazing times set in this shoe during marathons. As someone who's never run a marathon and doesn't plan to, good for those people. This shoe probably helped them run faster, but for me, a regular dude, it just felt soft. And when it comes to day-to-day lifestyle wear, which is probably how I'll wear this shoe most, it's very soft underfoot. It's very well cushioned. It still gives you that bouncy feel, so you don't feel like you're sinking into the shoe as much as I think you could have if you just had this 55 millimeters of Zoom X foam. So if you were looking for the softest, most plush underfoot feel that you could possibly buy, I think this is it. It's very possible that there are shoes out there that I don't know about, but I've tested thousands of shoes over my last 10 years reviewing shoes on YouTube, and I think that this is the softest one I've ever put on my foot. But there is a downside, and the downside is I think this shoe might be too soft. The problem that I had with this shoe was the same problem that I had with the Invincible Run 3 years ago. And that's that this shoe does feel unstable. Now what's crazy is that this shoe is significantly wider than the Invincible Run 3. Like much, much wider. And because of that, it should feel more stable. The problem is they increase the stack height so much. And because of that, I just feel like it's not wide enough to make up for that. Now, I didn't feel unstable to the point where I felt like I was gonna roll my ankle or anything like that. Like, it didn't feel unsafe at all. But I did feel like my midsection, my core was working overtime in order to make me stay on top of the shoe. It really did feel like I was trying to balance myself on top of a very soft marshmallow versus, a more stability-focused shoe like a Hoka or even the regular Nike Vomero 18. It honestly felt like it was making certain muscles in my body work overtime that don't usually work on runs. Was it terrible? No, but it was definitely a different experience, and it worked out my core way more than any of my other shoes do. And I really think it was just because it was a balance thing. Like, I noticed it here and there when I was running, and then when I finished, I was like, wow, okay, that was some muscles that I hadn't worked in a minute. At points, it felt unnecessarily soft. Now, if you like the maximum cushion shoe, then yeah, this is it. And I think for day-to-day lifestyle wear, which is what I'm primarily gonna wear this for, because I don't think I need to work those muscles as much as I felt like I worked them today. I feel like that was unnecessary. That being said, there were certain aspects of this shoe that I feel like helped propel me into my next step more than other shoes do. So I was probably able to run a little bit longer than usual. So I don't know, I feel like it's a different underfoot experience than what you're probably used to. But I like it. I realize I'm saying some negative things about it, but I do overall really like it. I think it's a great shoe. Now, as far as the midsole goes visually, I do think it is a very unique aesthetic, and I think on foot, if you're not wearing it with some sort of athletic fit, it's gonna look weird. I just can't, there's no way around it. Any of these like crazy thick max cushion shoes, they look odd on foot if you're not wearing them with like shorts or joggers or something like that. It's not something that I would throw on with a pair of jeans, although you probably could. When it comes to putting together a fit, it's not the easiest shoe to rock casually. I have a somewhat similar feeling with the Pegasus Premiums, although because they're not as tall and because they're a more honestly traditional looking shoe, I do think it's easier to rock this casually, and the feel is very interesting on this shoe. I should have done a review on this shoe. I didn't, but I should have. But this guy is absolutely gonna get you some looks because people are gonna be like, what is he wearing on his foot? That's crazy. Now, one very interesting detail that can be found on this TPU heel clip that wraps around the heel area of the shoe on top of the midsole, presumably for some stability and some lockdown. You've got the words "not approved by World Athletics," meaning obviously it's not approved by World Athletics. It's something about this, some technical detail of the shoe has not been approved or doesn't meet their standards or something like that. I'm not sure what that could be, and I'm not sure why they have to physically say that on the shoe, but for whatever reason, it is said on the shoe. I did get the shoe from Nike by way of House of Heat. Thank you to House of Heat and Nike for this pair, by the way. That being said, I don't think it's a pre-production unit, so I don't think this is a pre-production detail. I think this is just truly just on every pair of the Vomero Premiums, although we'll see when the shoe actually releases on October 2nd. But interesting touch. That's there. Then on the bottom of the shoe, you've got this relatively thick rubber waffle outsole, which actually looks like it should last a long time, which is great. And the traction was decent. I ran in some wet conditions and also in some dry conditions, and it was fine. I had no issues whatsoever. I do like that they call out the heel in 4-foot height. It says heel 55 0.5 millimeters, 4 foot 45.5 millimeters, and then they also call out the women's size. Another kind of cool detail is that you've got these cutouts to the bottom of the air units, so you've got a little bit of a compression zone under there, or a crumple zone, I guess, as well as having exposed air unit area, which allows for some air zoom branding. But man, the Nike Vomero Premium is truly a wild, next level experience. It is a very premium shoe featuring top of the line technology from Nike. Now it comes at a very expensive price point of $230. And of course, if you want to grab a pair of these, you can check them out through the YouTube shopping tab on your screen. But if you are looking for truly the softest underfoot shoe that I personally have ever tried, the Nike Vomero Premium is the way to go. Now, is it too soft? I think it's right on that line. I think anything softer than this, we might be going into, okay, we need to calm down territory. But this one, I like it. I like it a lot. It's not gonna be my daily runner. It might be a recovery day runner, and I think for that it's great. It's definitely gonna be a fun shoe to wear casually here and there with my more athletic fits. It's something different. I don't know if it'll have the sort of cultural impact that the Pegasus Premium had. That shoe took the world by storm, I couldn't believe it. But I do think it's something that if you like Ultimate Max Cushion, you gotta try. But hey, at this point, I would love to know your thoughts on the upcoming Nike Vomero Premium and whether it is a shoe that you are willing to drop the $230 on. So let me know those thoughts in the comment section down below. Also, let me know if you'd like to see a full comparison between the Vomero 18, Vomero Plus, and Vomero Premium. I think that video will come out whether you guys wanna see it or not. I'm just really interested in it. I love doing content and stuff that I'm excited about. This is a shoe that I am very excited about, and actually a line that I'm very excited about. Subscribe if you wanna see more content just like this. Thanks so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.